Imagine waking up one morning and everything you thought was solid, everything you believed was secure, your gold, your investments, your legacy, vanishes, poof, gone. That's the nightmare 99. 9% of people don't see coming, and when it hits, it's already too late. But today, right now, you have the power to pivot from that collapse, from zero, to CEO of your own destiny. Welcome to the wake-up call you can't ignore. Imagine this. You wake up one morning, and everything you thought was safe is gone. The gold you trusted, the assets you stored away, the savings you worked your entire life to build, they are either devalued, frozen, or stripped from your control. It sounds extreme, doesn't it? But that's exactly what happens to 99.9% of people. Not because they're unlucky, not because the system suddenly decides to punish them, but because they ignored the warnings. They stayed asleep while the world shifted underneath their feet. They believed what worked yesterday will automatically protect them tomorrow. And that mindset is exactly why they lose everything. Here's the truth. The danger doesn't come announced. It doesn't tap you on the shoulder and politely tell you it's about to destroy your wealth. It comes like a thief in the night. History has proven this over and over. Nations collapse, currencies vanish, even empires crumble. Yet, every single time, the majority believes this time it's different. They cling to their illusions until it's too late. That's why urgency is everything. Waiting, hoping, trusting in old systems. Those are the silent killers of wealth. If you're not paying attention right now, you're already behind. The rules of the game are shifting faster than most people realize. Governments rewrite financial laws overnight. Banks freeze accounts when panic spreads. Currencies inflate until your so-called safe savings become worthless. Even gold, which people see as the ultimate store of value, is only safe until it's not in your hands anymore. Ask yourself, how much of what you believe is truly yours could be taken, controlled, or taxed out of existence the moment the system buckles? That's the level of risk the 99.9% don't prepare for. They put blind faith into something fragile. They believe possession means protection, but control is the only true protection. You don't control what sits in someone else's vault. You don't control what's locked in a system that can flip the switch on you at any time. And if you're comfortable with that reality, then understand, you're already standing on thin ice. Now let me be clear. This isn't about fear. It's about urgency. Fear paralyzes, but urgency mobilizes. Urgency is what pushes you to act before disaster strikes. It forces you to build a plan, to think ahead, to refuse the lazy comfort of "I'll figure it out later." Later doesn't exist when the system collapses overnight. Later is the luxury of those who end up empty-handed. Urgency is what separates those who lose from those who lead. When I say 99.9% of people will lose their assets, I don't mean they'll wake up broke in the street. I mean they'll lose sovereignty, they'll lose control. They'll watch as the assets they thought were untouchable become trapped in a system they can't access. That's even worse than being broke, because in that moment, you realize you were never in control to begin with. You were just renting security, and rented security always comes with an eviction notice. That's why the 0.1% think differently. They don't wait for the world to hand them safety. They don't outsource responsibility. They build systems that work in chaos, not just in calm. They diversify intelligently. They anticipate worst-case scenarios, and they design their wealth so that no single point of failure can wipe them out. That's not paranoia. That's leadership. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. If you don't adopt urgency, someone else will. Someone else will take the opportunities you ignored. Someone else will secure the assets you left exposed. Someone else will step into the CEO role of their own life while you're still sitting on the sidelines hoping the storm will pass. But storms don't pass. They intensify, and those who fail to prepare always end up washed away. This is the moment to decide if you're part of the 99. 9% who trust the illusion or the zero. 1% who move with urgency. The difference isn't luck, it isn't privilege, it's mindset. It's the willingness to stop waiting and start acting, to see the cracks forming before the collapse, to take ownership before someone else takes it from you. The window is small, the clock is ticking, and the harsh truth is, most people will ignore this and go right back to sleep. But if you choose urgency, if you choose to step into ownership, you don't just protect your gold and your assets. You protect your future, you protect your family, you protect the very foundation of everything you've built, because in the end, wealth isn't measured by what you have. It's measured by what you can keep when everything around you is crumbling. And when that day comes, the 9% will be left with regrets, but the 1%, they'll be the ones standing, leading, and building the future. That choice starts now. There is always a moment in life when you feel like everything you've built is collapsing. The walls close in, the ground beneath you cracks, and the assets you thought made you secure slip through your fingers like sand. It might be the market crashing overnight. It might be your savings shrinking in value until the numbers on the screen feel like a cruel joke. It might be watching others rise while you sink deeper into debt, fear, and doubt. That is the fall, and almost every person experiences it. The fall doesn't announce itself. It doesn't give you the courtesy of preparation. One day you're comfortable, the next you're fighting for breath. People lose their gold, their businesses, their properties, their identities. They tie their self-worth to numbers, to possessions, to a system that was never designed to keep them safe. And when the system cracks, as it always does, they fall with it. That's why 9% lose, not just their assets, but their hope, their fight, their vision. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. The fall is necessary. The collapse is the test, because it strips away the illusion. When everything is gone, when the wealth you thought was untouchable evaporates, you're forced to confront the one asset that never disappears, your ability to rebuild. The fall isn't the end, it's the initiation. Look back through history and you'll see the same pattern. Empires rise, economies boom, fortunes grow. Then everything flips. Gold is confiscated, currencies crash, property is seized. Families who thought they were untouchable watch their legacies vanish. Yet out of that rubble, a few stand up, a few rise while the masses drown. Why? Because they decide that losing everything is not the end of their story. It's the beginning of their transformation. The rise doesn't come from comfort. It doesn't come from holding on to what's already lost. It comes from stepping into responsibility when everyone else is looking for someone to blame. It comes from embracing the pain of starting over, but this time with clarity, with urgency, with the mindset of ownership. When you rise after the fall, you are no longer naive. You no longer trust blindly. You no longer waste time pretending tomorrow will save you. You build with intention. You secure with foresight. You lead with conviction. That's the moment of becoming unstoppable, because once you've fallen and risen again, you're no longer afraid of losing. You understand that wealth isn't the numbers in a bank or the bars of gold in a vault. It's the resilience in your mind, the systems you create, and the vision you refuse to let die. That's why leaders emerge from chaos. They're not spared from the fall, they're refined by it. The rise transforms you. Before, you might have been someone chasing wealth. After the fall, you become someone building unshakable foundations. Before, you might have been someone relying on chance. After the fall, you become someone who designs their own security. Before, you might have been someone hoping for stability. After the fall, you become the creator of it. And that's why so few make it, because the fall destroys most people. They cling to the past, to what they lost, until they're too paralyzed to build again. But the ones who rise, the rare 1%, accept that collapse is not permanent. They see it as a doorway. They take what was meant to break them and use it as fuel. They rise not in spite of the fall, but because of it. This is the story of transformation. You fall, you break, you doubt. But then you rise, you fight, you lead. That cycle is where greatness is forged. That cycle is where leaders are born. If you've lost everything, if you've hit zero, that doesn't make you a failure. It makes you a candidate for rise. But only if you choose to get up. Only if you choose to rewrite your story. The world will keep falling. Systems will keep breaking. People will keep losing. But your rise is not about what the world does. It's about what you decide. When you stand back up, when you refuse to stay down, you become untouchable. You become unshakable. You become the proof that the fall is not the end, it's the spark. And when that rise comes, no storm, no collapse, no force can take it away. Because you've already faced the worst and you've already risen stronger. That's what separates the few from the many. That's what transforms zero into leadership. The fall is the test. The rise is the victory. And that victory is waiting for the one who refuses to quit. Look around you. Most people are asleep. They go through their lives with the illusion that what they have today will always be there tomorrow. They put their trust in systems that have failed countless times before. They believe their savings are safe, their gold is secure, their assets are untouchable. But deep down, you know that's a lie. You know it because history has shown it again and again, yet still, 9% of people will sit quietly, ignoring the signs, waiting for the inevitable collapse to strip them of everything. So here's the question, will you be one of them? Or will you decide right now that you refuse to be part of that statistic? Because this isn't about luck. It isn't about who's smarter, richer, or better connected. It's about choice. And if you choose to sit still, if you choose to believe the system will protect you, you've already chosen to lose. That's the harsh truth. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to challenge you, to push you out of the laziness that keeps most people broke, blind, and powerless. You have two options. You can keep living like the crowd, moving with the herd, hoping the storm won't reach you. Or you can step up, take control, and decide to act like the leader of your own future. Which one are you going to be? Think about it. When the collapse comes, and it always comes, most people will panic. They'll run to their banks only to find withdrawals limited. They'll rush to sell assets only to find their value evaporated. They'll cling to gold only to realize it's not in their hands. It's in someone else's vault, locked away and inaccessible. And while they're panicking, the few who saw it coming will be calm. They'll be prepared. They'll already have diversified, already have systems in place, already have control over their own wealth. That difference starts with mindset, and right now, you need to ask yourself, are you acting like the 9% who trust illusions, or the 1% who build reality? Because you can't have it both ways. Comfort belongs to the majority. Control belongs to the few. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect time. There is no perfect time, there is only now. If you don't act now, you'll wake up one day wishing you had. That's how people lose not only their wealth, but their dignity. They had every opportunity to prepare, but they ignored it. Don't let that be your story. I'm challenging you to think differently, to stop outsourcing your security, to stop believing that someone else will save you. No one is coming. No government, no bank, no leader will protect you when the storm hits. The only person who can protect you is staring back in the mirror. That's reality, and until you accept it, you'll always be vulnerable. This isn't about fear, it's about ownership. Ownership of your future, ownership of your assets, ownership of your decisions. When you own something fully, no system can take it from you. When you control the structure of your wealth, you don't panic when others collapse, you lead, you stand firm, you move forward while others crumble. That's the difference, so I'm asking you, no, I'm demanding you, stop acting like the crowd. Stop waiting for signs, stop believing that tomorrow will look like today. Tomorrow is not promised, and if you don't prepare, tomorrow could be the day you lose everything. You have the power to choose. You can be part of the 9% who lose their assets, their security, and their confidence, or you can be part of the 1% who take control, who prepare, who rise above the chaos. That choice defines your future. That choice determines whether you're a victim of collapse or a leader in crisis. So here's the challenge: act now, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, not when everyone else starts to panic. Act now when others are sleeping. Build the systems, secure the assets, take control. Because if you don't, you'll have no one to blame but yourself when the collapse hits. The world doesn't wait for the unprepared. It rewards the ones who move early, who think differently, who dare to lead when others hide. That's the challenge in front of you. Either stay asleep with the herd or rise and claim control of your future. The decision is yours. If you want to survive what's coming, it's not enough to know the problem. You need a defense plan, and not the kind most people tell themselves they have. Most people think having a little savings, maybe some gold tucked away, maybe a few investments is protection. It isn't. That's not a defense. That's an illusion. Because the moment the system shifts, those assets can be frozen, confiscated, or made worthless. The majority play defense by hoping the system will hold. The minority play defense by building structures that work even when the system fails. First, stop thinking in terms of a single lifeline, one account, one vault, one stream of income. That's not security, that's a trap. If that single point breaks, you break with it. True defense means diversification, but not just the shallow version you hear in finance books. Diversification isn't throwing your money into different stocks or holding a little gold on the side. Real diversification is across systems, across asset types, across control points. It means having value that exists outside of traditional banks, outside of government, controlled vaults, outside of anything that can be turned off with one decision you don't control. Second, you need liquidity you can actually touch. Too many people store everything in assets that look valuable on paper but vanish when crisis hits. Property can be seized, currencies can collapse. Even gold can be unreachable if it's not in your hand. Liquidity means having access to value at the exact moment you need it, not weeks later, not after waiting in line, not after approvals, because when panic spreads, speed is the only advantage. If your wealth is locked in systems that slow you down, you've already lost the race. Third, learn the difference between possession and control. Just because you legally own something doesn't mean you control it. If your gold sits in someone else's vault, you don't control it. If your money is in a bank that can freeze accounts, you don't control it. If your investments are tied to a system that can shut down, you don't control them. Defense starts with ruthless honesty about what you actually control. Anything outside of that is rented security, and rented security always comes with conditions. Fourth, build systems, not silos. Too many people pile their wealth into a single silo, believing it will stand forever. Systems are different. Systems are layered, adaptable, and resilient. A system is when one piece backs up another, when your wealth is spread across different structures that protect each other. That way, if one piece collapses, the whole doesn't fall. Silos collapse under pressure. Systems flex, absorb impact, and keep you standing. Fifth, education is defense. Ignorance is the weapon used against the 99. 9%. They lose because they don't understand what they hold, how it works, or what risks are attached. They trust what they don't understand, and when the system takes it away, they're shocked. Defense means taking the time to actually know how your assets function, where they're stored, what controls exist, and what risks you've ignored. Knowledge is the shield that prevents you from walking blind into traps. Sixth, never underestimate mobility. Defense is not just about protecting value, it's about keeping yourself flexible. If your wealth is stuck in one place, in one jurisdiction, under one authority, you're vulnerable. Mobility means being able to move your assets, shift your strategies, and adapt when the landscape changes. The world is not stable. Borders shift, laws change, systems crumble. If your assets are chained down, you're chained with them. Finally, defense is not a one-time setup. It's not something you do once and forget. Defense is constant. The world changes, threats evolve, and what worked yesterday may be useless tomorrow. The people who lose are the ones who assume their defense is permanent. The people who win are the ones who constantly test, adjust, and strengthen their defense. They treat it like a living system, not a static plan. This is what practical defense looks like. Not trusting the system, not hoping for stability, not believing you're safe because you hold some shiny metal or a portfolio someone else manages. Real defense is diversification across systems, liquidity in your hands, control of what you own, systems that protect each other, education to see risks clearly, mobility to adapt, and constant vigilance. That's the difference between illusion and security. The majority will never build this defense. They'll keep believing their wealth is safe until it disappears. But if you're willing to step up, to think differently, to build a defense that actually works, you separate yourself from the crowd. You move from vulnerable to untouchable, and when the collapse comes, and it always does, you won't just survive, you'll stand, you'll lead, and you'll rise while others lose everything. At the end of the day, everything you've heard, everything you've learned, comes down to one decision. Will you allow yourself to be swept into the 99% who lose, or will you rise into the rare 1% who lead? The collapse is not a question of if, it is only a question of when. Systems that seemed untouchable have fallen 1,000 times before, and they will fall again. Wealth built on blind trust will evaporate. Security outsourced to others will vanish. Comfort will betray the very people who cling to it. That is the fate of the many. But your story doesn't have to end that way. The future is not written yet. It is being carved in every choice you make, every action you take, every preparation you build today. Right now, while most people are asleep, you have the chance to design a life of control, to step out of the herd and into leadership, to transform yourself from someone waiting for stability into someone who creates it. That is what separates the masses from the few. That is what separates victims of collapse from architects of resilience. You must understand something. The next era will not reward the passive. It will not protect those who cling to what worked yesterday. It will only reward those who think differently, who prepare relentlessly, who act decisively before the storm. That's the 1%. They don't ask for guarantees. They build their own. They don't wait for opportunity. They create it. They don't get destroyed by the fall. They rise higher because of it. And this is what your future demands, that you stop thinking like the majority and start living like the minority who refuses to be broken. Stop measuring wealth only in gold or assets. Real wealth is measured in control, in resilience, in the ability to adapt and thrive no matter what the world throws at you. That is the power you must build. That is the foundation that will keep you standing when everything else crumbles. Picture this, the world around you in chaos, people panicking, systems failing, markets collapsing. But while the crowd is drowning, you are steady, you are calm, you are secure, not because you trusted someone else to protect you, but because you took control long before the collapse arrived. That vision isn't fantasy, it's reality for the few who prepare, and it can be your reality if you decide right now to stop living blind and start living awake. The choice is simple, but it isn't easy. It requires courage. It requires discipline. It requires you to walk away from the illusions that keep most people comfortable but weak. You have to be willing to stand apart, to build differently, to think on a higher level than the masses around you. That is the price of leadership. That is the path of resilience. That is the future of those who refuse to settle for being part of the 99%. And when the collapse hits, and it will, you won't just survive it. You will emerge stronger. You will be the one standing while others fall. You will be the one leading while others search for direction. You will be the one writing your future instead of begging for someone else to save you. That's the true vision, not just keeping what you have, but multiplying it. Not just surviving the storm, but mastering it. This is your moment. This is your warning. This is your call to action. Do not waste it. Do not delay. Every day you wait, the window closes. Every day you hesitate, the odds against you grow. But every day you act, every system you build, every piece of control you take back, you move closer to the future where you lead, where you rise, where you protect what others will lose. The world is about to divide into two groups, the many who collapse and the few who rise. The line is being drawn right now. On which side will you stand? The choice is in your hands, and the time is now. When the dust settles, when the chaos clears, there will only be two kinds of people, those who lost everything and those who built the unshakable. Decide, act, and rise, because the future doesn't wait, and neither should you. Today, you're not just preserving assets, you're forging legacy, you're the CEO of your own resilience. The odds are stacked against you, but the 1% don't win because of luck. They prepare, they evolve. They lead, so stand up, act, transform from spectator to sovereign, because when the tide turns, only leaders remain standing, armed with the foresight to protect what matters most. Zero to CEO starts now.